They're churning out stealth fighters like biscuits.
Yeah, they are.
This is crazy. This is industrial capacity of a truly alarming rate.
Is Rafale the solution or is it not the solution? We now face this monster to our north and we don't have any solution. How is China manufacturing jets in this space? Who is funding it? How do they have this kind of economic prowess to fuel the largest military expansion in modern history? How?
And I will acknowledge once again, viewer, the urgency and the scale of that question goes up 10x now because of this report.
大家好，今天这期视频我们来分享一期印度专业防务播客的完整内容。这期节目出自 Control Alt Defense 第48期，两位主持人根据美国战区网站披露的开源情报报告，围绕中国歼20隐身战机产能展开了全面分析。节目里结合多方情报数据指出，当前解放军服役的歼20数量或将突破500架，按照生产节奏推算，2030年机队规模有望达到1000架。两位主播还拿印度自研光辉战机做了鲜明对比。光辉战机2001年就完成首飞，历经20多年服役数量不足40架，四代半光辉 MK2， 国产五代机 AMCA 项目至今不见实质成果。除此之外，他们还对比了中印预警机、电子战飞机、军用无人机、大型水面舰艇等全套军工产业链的巨大差距，深刻剖析印度国防规划、工业体系长期存在的各类难题。接下来，我们一起来看这段原版对话剪辑。
Because, our friends over at the War Zone, which is a very popular American defense publication, put out a story which caught our eye, Vishnu's eye as a matter of fact, and he sort of sent it to me, which has a new estimate for the number of stealth fighters, specifically the Chinese J-20 Mighty Dragon, that China actually operates. And the reason why Vishnu and I put everything aside and decided to do this topic is because it's shocking, Vishnu. Yeah. It's shocking. Frontline J-20, so-called fifth generation stealth fighter, maybe more than double the number of what was globally believed to be that actual number.
Yeah.
He's put a number on it, Vishnu. He says 500 J-20 fighters are operationally active with the Chinese Air Force at this point of time, which basically means two things. And I just want to set the stage before we get into the conversation of why this is alarming. A, it means that China is constantly improving these fighters because you can't have 500 fighters without, itinerant improvements to these jets. Number two, this is a production rate and a production scale that is something that surpasses the Americans, the United States possibly, where and I tweeted this earlier and people were having a laugh at that, they're churning out stealth fighters like biscuits.
Yeah, they are.
This is crazy. This is industrial capacity of a truly alarming rate. I'm not coming. We've done past episodes where we've talked about questions over the quality of the J-20, etc. But let's just look at the J-20 as is, because this means that a complex stealth fighter, which are not easy by any stretch of imagination to manufacture, are now being manufactured at a eye-watering rate by China. They've achieved that rhythm, they've achieved that scale, and they're going for it, and they're putting their mass into it, and they're getting these huge numbers.
Yeah.
Point number 3, and most importantly, is the fact that the J-20 is only an appetizer for things to come.
Yeah, it is.
The same assessment that the War Zone puts out, courtesy Andreas, is that by 2030, which is 4 years from now, 3.5 years from now, China will have 1,000 J-20s. 1,000 J-20s.
The J-20 is China's Mi-21, right? That's what it's become.
Which is close to 30 squadrons, 1,000 aircraft.
That's absurd.
Of presumably vastly improved configurations. By that time, maybe the first of the so-called 6th generation fighters, would have reached a stage of maturity. Where they are going to start, moving towards operational service, not entering service, but moving towards operational service. And in this entire conundrum, Vishnu, the number of stealth fighters that India has, if we were to do a pound for pound comparison of stealth fighter capability, is zero.
No,
it's
and that's
zero.
That's the conversation. That's just the point. Before we started this, I was asking you to remind me when the Tejas first flew. The Tejas first flew in 2001. It's now 2026. We have approximately 38 in service right now, give or take. In 25 years, we've got less than 40 Tejas jets in service. The J-20 Mighty Dragon flew on the 11th of January 2011 for the first time. Yeah. And now they've got 500 in service, probably. And we're now looking at 1,000. Yeah. So manufacturing stealth aircraft is extremely difficult. Yeah. Stealth shaping requires, precision, which is not easy to do. Mastering composites and churning out stealth is very difficult besides the internal engineering. And if anybody who suggests that ye Chinese maal hai, nahi chalegi, I mean, that's rubbish. Let's give up, thoughts like that, because the United States certainly doesn't have any of those thoughts. They believe that, you're quite right when you say that every evolution of this aircraft, and there have been a couple. There's a J-20, there's a J-20A, there's a twin-seat J-20 as well. They've got new technologies on board. They've refined their avionics. And that makes it, quite something. In terms of the potential ability or capability of that radar itself. That's something that needs to be looked at. They've now graduated to, they first went from Russian engines to a Chinese engine called the WS-10. They've now evolved to the WS-15.
Yeah, and that is key because these are Chinese engines.
These are Chinese engines which are powerful enough to ensure that these are proper super cruise aircraft. If you're flying at Mach 1.1, Mach 1.5 or thereabouts, then, it is a really big deal on super cruise without engaging after. The question is, where does that leave us? It's not enough for us, and it's not enough for me. And as you know, I've been getting into fights with people on Twitter to get into this. Is Rafale the solution or is it not the solution? If we have Rafale being inducted 114 or being potentially inducted 114, then why can't it be the Tejas Mark II? What on earth are we talking about? These people have got 500 J-20s built, presumably deployed. That's just the J-20. Some estimates are saying that the J-35 aircraft, which is a stealth aircraft, has got approximately 30 to 35, which may in fact already be in service. That's already been evolved for deployment on their aircraft carrier. Pakistan is going to get that in a finite period of time. That's something that they are going to develop further as well. These are only two stealth aircraft. They've got the J-36, which is a 6th generation platform. We've spoken about that. They've got their J-50, it's called the XDS. These are unbelievable designs. 2035, I would suggest, is when we would likely see early stage induction of their 6th generation platform. How many Tejas Mark II, which is a 4th generation aircraft, have we rolled out in terms of prototypes? 0. How many AMCA? 0.
This is not even a gap. This is not even the same ballpark. This is not even the same league.
Shiv. I don't think, sorry to interrupt, I just don't think we have the industrial, I don't know if anybody has the industrial capability to match this rate of production. It's not just technology, it's industrial capacity and costs. I've always wondered how the Chinese are building at the rate that they are, not just their weaponry, but their infrastructure in their country, their highways in their country. Their warship production is unmatched in modern times. Their Air Force, they built 500 of these jets, they're moving to 1,000. They've made this into a MiG-21. I mean, the MiG-21 was churned out by Russia or the MiG-15 was churned out by Russia like this. Why? Because it is easy to build. These are incredibly complex to build.
Yeah. And
they're churning it out at phenomenal pace. So what does China have? They started with the KJ-2000, which was also on an IL-76 bed. They moved to the KJ-500. They've got 60 of those operational. That's their workhorse. They've got a smaller number of KJ-600 that will be based on their carrier. We don't have that capability. We have Ka-31s, which is a helicopter. Not quite the same.
Not the same.
KJ-3000. This is sort of structured on their new Y-20 based aircraft. The Y-20 is a phenomenal transport aircraft, which looks like the C-17, except it's not. So that's just come out. So they have got 64 I mean, let's say they've got about 65 to 70 AWACS aircraft.
And we've got
six.
Yeah.
This is a force multiplier. You cannot fight an air war without this. Pakistan has more than us. Forget about China. Right? And then I've not even gone into electronic warfare
AWACS
aircraft.
will have to be a completely separate episode, obviously.
No, it must. And the fact is, the Netra is a damn good aircraft.
Yeah.
I mean, I've spoken to people and former air chiefs who've told me that, it really has potential. We've seen it has potential. We've seen the potential of its evolution as well. Then, of course, this is something we don't talk about. Dedicated electronic attack and jamming aircraft, right? They've got the J-16D, which is a Su-30 variant of theirs. Purpose-built jamming aircraft. You should see that. It's incredible. We haven't made our Super Sukhoi right now. We haven't dedicated...
This is like a Chinese growler, basically.
Yeah, it is. Exactly right. We don't have something which is equivalent.
No, a comment that we get pretty often from some people, not most people, because most people understand where Vishnu and I come from when we do episodes of this kind, is that, why are you always highlighting India's weaknesses? Why are you playing down India's strengths? And why are you making China look bigger than they are? Look, this is the one place in, the garbage of defense media online where you're going to have people speaking the truth and telling it like it is. So I want to make that very clear that India has real strengths, and I'm going to get into that right now.
And
what we can
keep talking about
let me just finish this point.
Yeah,
I just want to say that to those who say that, why are you harping on India's weaknesses? Because these are weaknesses that are the result of a history of bad planning, a history of terrible priorities, a history of, bureaucracy, and, a complete failure of vision to see what India's requirements are going to be as far as the future modern battlefield is concerned. You can read Vishnu's book, which has great tales about Operation Sindoor. But one of the big takeaways from any account of Operation Sindoor will also tell you about how India got through that war despite the many weaknesses and planning challenges that we actually had. So this is not a story to be proud of.
No.
Where we are right now is a dangerous impasse. People will say, but war is unlikely. War will not break out. We are making peace with China. There are other ways to stop stealth aircraft. How do you explain a bloody 500 aircraft fleet by your nearest neighbor with which you have a 6-year and running military standoff, and you don't have a single stealth aircraft of your own with absolutely no forward path to getting those numbers? Which brings me to my next question, Vishnu. Can we just say now that there is no trying to match this capability pound for pound? It has to be all these other jugaad ways, whether it is air defense, whether it is the Surya. These are all legitimate defense measures,
but not solutions
by themselves. But as far as stealth
themselves.
fighters themselves, because there are going to be idiots who will say, "Arey, but why do we need stealth fighters when we have all this?" To try and offset the fact that crappy planning for decades has meant that right now we are sitting, holding our pants and waiting for the Tejas Mark 1A, which we have no idea when it's going to come online, while there is absolutely zero vision to tell us where that stealth fighter is going to be.
Look, as I keep saying in all of my tweets, because people are just like, all you're interested in doing is seeking the import of the Rafale. And how is the Rafale going to counter the J-20? And why can't the Tejas Mark II do that? And my simple point is that the Rafale by itself is not a solution. But if you have an Indian Air Force which is demanding the Rafale because it's an in-service aircraft, it has huge strike capability.
Yeah.
It gives you some capability that you want. You don't have an ideal solution in taking on stealth platforms. The Rafale by itself isn't. Why deny the Air Force that? And what about the entire argument that while the Rafale is a fully built platform which is being evolved, you haven't rolled out a single Tejas Mark II. You have to spend years and years evolving that technology. What if that doesn't work? We've seen in the case of the Tejas Mark 1A that you've run into problems. Are problems of integration uncommon? They aren't. Is it a bad thing? No, they're not. But it is a time factor.
Yeah.
Whereas the chances of getting the Rafale, and this is the part which is going to be taken out, and the chances of the Rafale being successful in its F4 and F5, this thing is much higher. And there is, let's face it, a crisis of confidence that the Indian Air Force has had for a long period of time in what Hindustan Aeronautics eventually delivers. Let's not be in denial of this. And equally, HAL says that, goalposts are shifted. We were supposed to make the lightest, cheapest MiG-21 replacement, and now you're telling us to make something which is comparable to the Rafale in the Tejas Mark II. Think about it. What do you expect us to do? As a country, we have at many levels failed. We now face this monster to our north, and we don't have any solutions. I mean, what I'm telling you now, ki kuch radar kharid dete.
Yeah.
We have made Surya radar. We will take on the Chinese J-20. And this is something neither of us really know about. How is China manufacturing jets in this space? Who is funding it? How do they have this kind of economic prowess to fuel the largest military expansion in modern history? How? I mean, these are billion-dollar. Each warship of the Type 55 class, which is a cruiser, their largest warship, would be $1 billion plus. And they keep churning these out. Their Type 52D, they keep churning these out. Who pays for this? Somebody evidently does. But they are able to afford this at a pace which is shocking.
The Chinese economy can afford it. They're paying for it because there is a certain.
And we'll never really know the cost.
There is political certainty and political will that funnels money into those projects. So it's very clear that that's what's happening. But I wouldn't argue so much about that. We are a country which is very different from China.
So Shiv, surface-to-air missiles, but again, surface-to-air missiles against stealth platforms is getting into an area where only recently you are seeing F-35s being tested by the Iranians. So in terms of, you need to have that very advanced radar net. We already have a fairly advanced one. I'm not sure that anti-stealth technology has come around to that level where you can reliably be tracking potentially hundreds of stealth aircraft deployed against you and which are launching at standoff ranges. But assuming you're able to build up that network, both in the air and certainly on the ground, you already have problems when it comes to coverage because of the Himalayan terrain. And yet their frontline platforms will always be their stealth platform. That is the path that they have chosen.
Yeah.
People often say that, why are you overstating the Chinese stealth issue when in fact they've got any number of 4.5 generation aircraft? That's because it's only once you get air dominance or air superiority that you would potentially start deploying platforms which are more vulnerable, right? And look, Shiv, in this episode, we've only spoken about fighters. What about their stealthy drones?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen them.
I was going to come to that.
And it's crazy. I mean, they've done so much of that, and I've pulled out my notes on this because I spotted them in some satellite imagery as well, and they've got so many which are already deployed. And
UCAVs and collaborative combat aircraft.
And these are fully deployed. For example, they've got something, this was shown in a display, I think in Beijing this time around. Earlier on. The Sharp Sword, the GJ-11, right? It's normally entered service in 2021. It's been visibly operational. I think at Shigatse it was also sort of spotted. It carries missiles, as I understand it. It's not just for reconnaissance purposes. They've got the Wingloon 1 and 2 family. Yeah. They've got the CH-4, CH-5 family. They've got the WZ-7 Soaring Dragon. This I have spotted in satellite imagery, and we marked it out. And this is just 4. And they've likely got thousands of these. So and these are their advanced drones.
Yeah.
A huge amount of the actual warfare, particularly against ground targets and soldiers' infantry, will be the less advanced drones. So we need to really think about this.
And they've got these in large numbers as well.
Service. These are in
less
service.
Sophisticated than manned fighters.
Possibly, I've read somewhere, they're possibly the largest manufacturer of drones in the world. We don't really know that because, Iran has also manufactured a huge number of drones with different classes and certainly not as sophisticated as some of the ones that I described.
Yeah, so, the other way of looking at it, Vishnu, is of course that, we're getting alarmed by a report about large numbers of a sophisticated crewed fighter, a manned fighter. Whereas what you said is really where it's at. Things have shifted towards drone warfare, the use of collaborative combat aircraft. You've just listed a bunch of frontline drone units which are already deployed. These are not in development. These are not on paper. These are not prototypes. These are operational assets that are out there, ready for war. So that's the larger cloud that we're not talking about at all. The fact that here we are obsessing over a report over The J-20, because it's your visible face of the Chinese Air Force, their most sophisticated operational fighter right now. But all this work that they've done in drones means that's what we should be really looking at.
So look, we need to expand our defense budget, and I don't want to make this a boring episode, but even now it's nowhere close to where it needs to be. Is there a realization in upper levels of government that given the industrial capacity of the Chinese and what they've already deployed, we cannot burn the bank down to meet that, and therefore it is probably wiser to be more pacifist, seek cooperation, and hope for the best. And then we come out with reports on how the Chinese are building villages on the front line. Because they are aggressive, they are sophisticated, and they have the industrial base. So what do we as a country do? This is our biggest strategic challenge. It's very difficult.
看完两位印度防务博主完整的焦虑与理性分析，真正值得我们沉下心思考的，从来不止500架歼减20这个冰冷数字，而是他们全程反复追问的核心难题：中国到底依靠什么能持续稳定大批量量产5代隐身战机、大型驱逐舰、各类先进军机，构建起完整现代化空中与海上作战体系？两位主播全程没有戴上有色眼镜，刻意贬低歼减20的性能，反而十分客观地认可这款战机多年来持续迭代的硬实力，从早期俄制发动机过渡到国产涡扇歼10，再升级到适配超音速巡航的涡扇15，机载有源相控阵雷达，内置霹雳系列远程空导弹，全部实现国产化。整套隐身作战配套装备完全自主，也彻底打破了西方长期流传中国制造军工品质低劣的刻板印象。就连美国、印度空军这类潜在对手都公开承认必须正视歼减20带来的空中威慑，这一点是这段视频最客观公允的地方。我们先梳理双方航空工业悬殊的时间线，做直观对比。歼减20在2011年完成首飞，仅10余年时间就完成多批次量产、多型号迭代，双座教练、改进型号同步列装，年产量稳定维持100架级别。反观印度光辉战机2001年就完成首飞，横跨25年，现役交付总量还不到40架。更尴尬的是，定位4代半的光辉 MK2 原型机迟迟无法下线。本土5代机 AMCA 项目规划多年，至今停留在图纸规划阶段，量产服役时间一推再推。本土航空工业的研发、量产能力存在巨大断层，差距从来不只有人战斗机这单一维度，而是整套空战体系全方位拉开距离。预警机层面，中国批量列装60余架空警歼500中型预警机，还有运歼20大型平台改装空警300，适配航母的空警600舰载预警机高低搭配，海陆兼顾，而印度全国可用大型预警机仅有6架，舰载空中预警能力完全空白，只能依靠直升机预警弥补短板，探测距离、续航能力差距极大。除此之外，歼 16D 专业电子战战机、运9系列电子侦察、远程干扰飞机已经批量服役，形成完整电子作战梯队。印度至今没有同级别的自研电子战机型，只能依靠现有战机简单改装电子对抗能力存在明显短板。无人机领域的差距同样不容小觑，攻击11隐身无人攻击机、无侦7高空侦察无人机、翼龙、彩虹全系列察打一体无人机，大批量部署，兼顾侦察对地打击，协同有人战机作战等多种任务，各类协同作战飞机也在稳步推进。视频中两位主播也坦言，无人机战争才是未来空战的核心趋势。而印度本土无人机产业起步晚，产能低，高端隐身无人装备几乎空白，只能依靠外购填补需求。主播也深入拆解了差距背后的根源，并不单纯是某一项技术落后，而是全产业链长期国策、资源调配、人才储备综合拉开的鸿沟。从战机机身复合材料、精密航电元器件，国产航空发动机到大型运输机、万吨大驱，国内拥有完整上下游产业链，不需要对外依赖关键零部件，不受海外供货限制，才能维持稳定高速量产。反观印度，大量核心零部件、航空发动机都需要进口， 供应链极易被外部卡脖子，产能自然很难提升。很多观众看完会产生一种片面想法，印度就算造不出隐身战机，采购阵风，引进防空系统，发展弹道导弹就能抵消劣势。但两位业内博主直接戳破这个误区，各类防空导弹、四代半战机只能被动防御，无法主动夺取制空权。现代战争中，制空权是一切作战行动的基础，单纯防守永远无法抵消对方规模化隐身机队带来的进攻优势。治标不治本，长期会陷入被动局面。视频没有一味唱衰印度，也客观肯定了该国部分军工亮点，国产大型驱逐舰、弹道导弹核潜艇、烈火系列远程弹道导弹项目都取得了不错成果，海军造船工业有自身独到优势。但短板集中在空军这条现代战争核心赛道，长期混乱的发展优先级，频繁变更的装备指标，繁琐冗长的官僚审批流程，不断拉长各类战机研发周期，大量项目立项多年不断延期，规划落地能力严重不足。更值得警惕的是，除歼20外，舰载隐身战机歼35已经小规模列装，未来还会出口。巴基斯坦也确定引进，意味着印度未来需要同时面对两款成熟隐身机型的空中压力，两国空中力量差距只会持续扩大，并不会缩小。很多网友看完这段内容，只会简单调侃印度的焦虑，但其实大可不必带着嘲讽心态看待。这段海外防务博主的分析本质是一份客观行业观察，也给所有发展中国家军工发展提供参考范本。中国军工现代化进程从来不是为了主动挑起军备竞赛，纯粹是基于漫长国土线、复杂周边环境，守护自身主权安全的正常国防建设，是数十年工业化、基础教育、科技研发稳步积累的成果，并非一蹴而就。反观印度当下的发展困境，有限国防预算需要分摊陆海空天多线需求，多线战略同时铺开，导致资源分散，产业政策频繁摇摆，本土制造业底子薄弱，一味依赖外购装备只能解燃眉之急，无法建立可持续自主军工体系。长期依靠进口战机，不仅财政负担沉重，还会丢失本土研发制造迭代的成长机会，陷入永久对外依赖的循环。这期播客最难得的价值，就是创作者放下主观情绪与民族偏见，不刻意抬高本国，弱化对手直面实打实的数据与工业差距。我们要清楚，大国之间的军工博弈从来不是单架战机、单艘舰艇的比拼，而是完整工业体系、经济承载力、长远战略规划、大批量专业技术人才的综合较量。短期装备采购弥补不了长期产业积累的差距。如果你对中印航空工业、隐身战机、空中预警、海军舰艇等领域的对比有自己独到的看法，或是想了解更多中外客观防务解读，都可以在评论区留言交流，每条评论我都会认真查看。感谢大家耐心观看本期内容，后续我还会持续带来更多中立客观的海外防务原版内容解析。我们下期再见。